Welcome back to the show. I am so excited for today's conversation. So, I'm going to start by having our guest, Ari Lebed, tell us who you are and what you do in the events industry.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Ari, and I am currently the director of creative at Moss, an experiential agency, and I lead the very talented multidisciplinary creative team there, and just making sure that we're creating compelling, bold work.
Amazing, amazing. And today we're talking about experiential activations, which I feel like, especially like from my side, I'm coming from a lot of trade shows, and it's always the great debate of how do we engage people? How do we do something that no one has seen before? How do we it's a little funny. So a couple weeks ago was the biggest event planner show in Canada for event planners.
Interesting.
And there's a few booths that it's like, I know exactly what they're going to do. I know.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've been doing it every year for 10 years. And it's like, is that good? Like, is that something that you want? Because you're like, well, I know that I'm going to be able to get X, Y, and Z. I won't say what it is because that'll give them away. Or is it, oh, no, we need to be upping ourselves every single time, right? I think I always joke at the end of every event, there's always someone while I'm still like sweating and tearing down and like a mess. They're like, so how are you going to top this next year? And I'm like, can we finish this year? Can I like go home and sleep? Can you get me
I feel
Diet
that.
Coke? Like, what? You're not helping here, right?
Yeah.
So, what are you seeing in experiential activations? Like, what are people looking for? Like, what are people tired of? What are the trends that you're seeing? And I know there's a lot of debate too on things that we don't want to see anymore.
Oh, gosh. That's such a great question. First of all, I want to answer your first question about like, if you're not iterating and you're not changing and adapting each year, that just means you're not like taking stock of what worked and what didn't work each year and then learning from that and changing. The other thing that I just wanted to say was this anecdote where I met this lawyer on a hike randomly, and we started talking about events because he was asking me what I do, and he said, "Oh, I just came back from a huge conference where we had a booth, like a law conference." And he said, "This year we decided to do something different, and it changed the game for us." Do you know what I
I
want?
don't know what you're gonna say, but I'm laughing because I'm married to a lawyer, and
yeah.
so I'm like,
He was
I
probably
know
there.
that they're usually very risk averse. Like, and so like
Yes.
if you suggest something crazy, like I have a friend who works at a law firm in events here, and we joke that like she has to go to the same places over and over again because they just won't deviate. It's like if
Yes.
you try and tell them like we're gonna go a few blocks the other way, I don't know, no one's gonna show up. So like I'm dying to know what the like wild activation was.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh my gosh, what could this be? Because he said that it was just like, it's exactly as you described. It's like very stale and everything, and they really wanted to make a mark. So this year at their booth, they had puppies.
I was like, it's gonna be puppies. Is it gonna be puppies? And he's gonna think, like, we've changed the game. Like, no one has ever seen this.
But and apparently it was earth-shattering at that conference, and it completely like reinvented everything for them in their minds about what their booth should be, and their engagement and everything went through the roof, which I just thought was so funny because we always try and get puppies into every activation that we do, of course, but I just thought that was really funny.
It's funny on the other side because now there's kind of the anti-puppy camp. Like, it's very hotly debated. Not that they're anti the puppies themselves,
Yes.
they're just anti them at the events.
Yes, I feel it can be jarring, it can be loud, things like that. So I feel that, I understand that. I feel like if you can tie in something like also adoption awareness, they're adoptable, something like that, making sure they're in a safe space. But I hear that. I do. I've been to an event where they put a llama in the basement of a hotel, and
I've seen a lot of llamas. I've seen
that
a lot
was-
of giant cows.
no.
I don't want to be near any of the animals. I like them at a distance. I like them. I respect them. Horses too. I'm like, I don't know. They're like, do you want to touch? No, it's good over there. But I think it's also being purposeful, right? Like,
Yeah.
do you just have puppies to have puppies? Or are you trying to connect it back to like a give back of like just
Totally.
adoption? Or are you trying to, it depends on what is the goal of it, right? Are you
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, well, let's just have some puppies to have some puppies
Yeah.
and create some buzz, I guess. But also, if you're like, oh, you work in something that's completely unrelated, and people are like, well, why are these dogs here?
Totally. No,
And are
totally.
they here all day? And like, and then there's a lot of questions, right? And I
Yeah. Are they
think,
being
are
fed?
they being fed? Is someone taking them outside? Are they all right? And I,
Oh my
and
God.
I, it's interesting because I think it's also very, and like, it will, I'm sure we'll bounce around so much in this conversation, but the, to the lawyers, this groundbreaking, right? Whereas event planners, I'm like, I saw puppies 3 years ago, right? Like, at least 3 years ago. And it's a funny thing that to balance sometimes of what we think is old and stale versus what attendees think is old and stale, because they're not at shows all the time. They're not at 50 shows a year
Yeah.
whereas we are, right? And
Yeah.
they might see something and think it's wild, right? And like things like photo booths, like
Yeah.
people
I
still
know.
love them. I'm like, I don't need another photo booth picture. Like I'm okay.
I
I'm
know.
okay. I'm personally okay.
Yeah.
And it's just like we have to remember too sometimes that our audience are not seeing these things, and so you can be like behind but kind of ahead depending on your audience, right?
Then I also feel like it depends on the brand's value, like the value they put on events and experiences. Because I feel like
Yeah.
if the brand really values them, they're going to continue to, optimize whatever they're doing. So yes, there's small degrees of optimization, but large degrees of optimization. But we're very lucky at Moss to work with a lot of brands where they kind of come to us to help reinvent a little bit of their B2B events and experiences. So we call them B2B2C, where
Yeah.
we're continuing to sort of, blur the lines between them. And I think it's like this there's like this amazing gradient where you can create sort of really high quality, engaging, and personalized experience that bleed over typically from consumer events into business events and move away from more of that sterileness, that crowd that feels incredibly anonymous. And so I feel like we're trying to combat the myth that B2B events are not don't have to be cookie cutter.
Yeah.
They don't have to be less creative than B2C. Like there's so much opportunity there to latch onto to make it, just way more impactful, surprising, and like really leave a mark and people walk away and be like, this is incredible. So I feel like there's actually usually I feel like a lot of fun and a lot of creative like challenges that come with them, makes it super interesting.
Yeah, and I always tell people like we're still selling to humans, right? Like B2B, like I've worked in B2B my entire career, but I'm not selling to a brand. I'm selling to a person on the other side who wants to feel recognized, wants to feel connected to, wants to
Totally.
feel understood, right? Like
Yeah.
I always tell people, especially working in software for so many years, if you're not explaining to them how you're either going to save them time or make their lives easier, like why are they going to talk? Like if you're not saving them money or saving them time, like don't talk to them, right? Like
Truly.
and they're people, like they're not faceless entities, right? And events really show you that more than any other marketing channel, right? Of like, oh, these are the people we serve. And I know, especially for me, I've worked in some companies where our target audience was mostly entrepreneurs, and so they were almost a B2C because they're like, this is our baby.
Yeah.
Like this is our family. This is our family's livelihood. Whereas, if you're selling into a bank or a government, they're just one of many thousands of people working there, right? But when you're working with and selling into entrepreneurs, it's like, no. Like the dollars they spend are impacting the people in their lives specifically, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like some big contract, they're like, yeah, this is kind of like has no meaning, right? Like it's so
No,
big
totally.
and beyond, right?
Totally. And I feel like to the point of not this thinking of each person as an individual and really focusing on each attendee versus the masses. It's even like you've seen this shift where right at the beginning sort of experiential and events, like our only KPI was like footfall. It was like
Yeah.
10,000 people came, you know. But did you move the needle with each of those
Yeah.
10,000 people? Because otherwise that number is meaningless. And
Yeah.
the only way that you're going to move the needle on those people is if you treat them as each individual person and give them something that provides obviously value to them, like you mentioned. And so I think that like this expansion of really looking at and really digging into like what does success look like, how can we reach our audience pre, post, during, and post an event, and really make them feel like we cared about each and every single one of them to really make a difference and really put those dollars to work. You know what I mean? Like it's a big investment, and you just want to make sure that you're not just saying, oh well, we had so many people, so
Yeah.
whatever.
And I always said, we would do a show, and I remember having a conversation with the CMO of, yes, there's going to be 10,000 people, 20,000 people at this show, and they are going to see our brand, and that is good for one thing. But if you have 5 or 10 people in your booth, they still can only talk to a certain number of people on a trade show floor, right? Like they are not able to connect, and so they'd be like, oh well, we should get 1,000 leads and 1,000 scans out of this. It's like, well, they're not talking to 1,000 people, so do you really want them scanned? Like, does that actually do anything for you?
No, totally. But it's like, was brand awareness a KPI? Like,
Right.
if that's not a super KPI, then even eyeballs aren't really worthy of, you know what I mean? If you've already advanced past that and it's more about generating those leads and to put them into the pipeline and generate business and things like that. What's really interesting about what you mentioned, that like ratio of like there's only so much staff in the booth and there's
Yeah.
so many people. Something that we that we started exploring this year with a brand is going to the people rather than having the people to come to us. So
Yeah.
like how can we like go out on the show floor with an activation, with a demo, and meet them potentially where they are versus having to wait for them to come to our experience or to our booth or something like that. Like it can even be really playful. Like we had with Anthropic, there was a AI camera that we took a photo of you, and then Claude created a haiku, and it was literally like a takeaway immediately.
Right.
But you just demoed Claude and you got a fun takeaway, and it was a quick experience, so quick throughput, and you can like hit a bunch of people. So I think there's also interesting ways to try and attendees beyond just the traditional footprint of our booths, obviously if the conference organizer allows it.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned it because I think it reminds me of a colleague I had who she had this like microphone and speaker, and she would just kind of just go out around the show floor until someone told her not to. She was just like, no, until someone tells me no. And sometimes they let her go for a long time, and then like sometimes and then like one show the following year they're like, don't bring her microphone. She's like, okay.
I love that. That's what the old adage of I'd rather beg for forgiveness. Yeah. You know what I mean?
In events,
than
it's
ask
a
for
lot.
permission.
It's a lot of begging for forgiveness. Of like, what's the worst they can say? Is they tell us to stop doing it? Okay, then we stop doing it. Like I had this conversation recently with a company that staffs like brand ambassadors. Like they do a lot of brand ambassador ones, and we were talking about the companies that are willing to pay to be in the train stations and in the buildings, and the ones that just go out onto the street and don't want to pay to be in the train station, so they'll just go out on the street until someone tells them to stop. And it usually takes a little while because people just kind of assume that they're meant to be there. They're like, oh, they're handing out whatever the thing is, and you see that all the time. So, okay, that they must, and they're wearing the shirts, and they got the hat, like they look like they're supposed to be there, right? Like, my mother used to always say, like, if you walk with confidence, people are going to believe that you are supposed to be there and know where you're going. Just walk with confidence, right? So, how much of, like, the guerrilla marketing kind of brand activations are just like, well, we'll just do it until someone tells us to stop, and then we say, okay, thank you.
I love that energy. I love that like bold, daring energy to be able to do something like that. I think we're actually currently right now thinking about around an activation in New York City, and it's going to take a little bit of guerrilla-ness to it to pull it off. And I think it's so exciting because the other thing that I think is it like this idea of something that I also like love about activations, right? It's like you load in, the event starts, and then you could try and predict what attendees are going to do, but you will never 100% ever know what they're
Yeah.
going to do because they're unpredictable. So like I've had an event where somebody climbed up on a bar and actually like touched neon, and we were like, don't do that, you're going to electrocute yourself. But you couldn't believe that there's attendees who are literally like picking up things that are glued down and
Uh-huh.
pulling them off and doing whatever. And so this activation that we're talking about doing right now, it involves actually people not actively encouraging them, but they're allowed to steal
Okay.
and saying that they can't, like, it's okay if they steal it. That's totally
Right.
fine. It's sort of built to be stolen,
Yeah.
but we're not there's nothing explicitly saying they're like take this. And
Right.
so I think when something like that goes up, it's going to be super interesting in seeing like what the social
Yeah.
dynamics are around how long things last or whatever. We had an activation at Gamescom Cologne, which is happening right now, last year, and we ended up rotating like the booth, and we had some leftover shelves because we ended up like mid activation saying, you know what, we
Yeah.
should just like rotate this thing as we do in Pivot. But we still had things on that shelf, and it took like less than half a day for all those things to just disappear
Right.
because people were just like, and I'll take that, yoink. And I
Yeah.
was just like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I just
I once did an event with a giant horse lamp. Like it was the size of a life-size horse and it had a lamp on it.
yeah.
Which actually I kind of would have preferred if it didn't have the lamp. And then I saw it on television. It was in an episode of Elspeth. I was like, that's my horse!
No way.
Anyways, and so it was like in a hospitality suite, and we were like, what's the over-under on somebody climbing on the horse? Like how long,
Yeah.
how late into the night do we have to wait? And I think it was like 9:30 and someone tried to get on the horse. We're like, all right.
Yeah, who won that bet? That's so funny. Yeah, because we even had like you mentioned we had like a sword and a stone, but it was meant to be a photo op. Like you kind of like hold it,
Right.
whatever, and there's just people thrashing on it. We had to
Right.
reinforce it every single day. I was like, wow, guys, crazy. Take it easy.
I know.
I was just like so aggressive. Relax, but that's so funny. Yeah, I that man, there's one of my favorite parts is just sitting back and watching, just like watching how things unfold. It's
Yeah,
just so much fun.
especially if you're doing something a little wacky and like the people doing tattoos in the booth. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
who are doing these? Like, who is signing up for the tattoo?
I don't know. I mean, Pinterest does it like they've been doing it year after over year in Cannes, and it's like one of the most popular part of their Cannes beach is the tattoos.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild. It's wild. So you mentioned AI, and I know that like you're really invested in it. You're seeing the future and like how it's going to help and not harm all of us. So how are you using that when you're like planning out activations? You know, maybe within your activations, like what are you using with? How are you using it to enhance those experiences?
Sure. So yeah, I'm a big fan right now in the sense that I think that there is like a way to approach it that makes you feel that you're still in control. I think that that's really the most important thing is that like you still are in control, you're in the driver's seat. And so during the event planning process, I think we found the greatest use of AI through things like it's a catalyst and a supercharger for like deep research. So if we're doing like deep audience research, strategic research, things like that, it's really helpful. But also concept image development. We do a lot of like concept image, but also even now moving into motion because like you have things like VO and OpenAI Sora where you can take one of your concept images and then give it a little bit of movement, which makes it even like 10 times more compelling. So
Right.
doing a lot of concept image development in it. And then on top of that, really quick iteration. So you know how fast our industry moves.
Yeah.
We are planning events sometimes in such a short timeline, but we need to lock concepts so quickly. So I feel like it allows us to move in light speed even faster than we were before because we can like riff with it. It's like such a great collaborative partner and then refine, etc. And then it really helps organize my thinking personally.
Right.
I do a lot of like the way that maybe I begin to think about things is in bullet points or like really shorthand. And then I ask it then to look at all my thinking and organize it and is it cohesive and things like that. So it's really great at that. So that's a lot of like the pre-pro type of usage that we do that we use it for. At an event, I think right now, besides if it's literally an AI demo, which is a
Right.
lot of what we do for the AI companies that we work with, I think it really, speaking of the start of our conversation, it offers personalization really at scale. So if you
Mm-hmm.
really want to make an attendee sort of feel special, AI is a great tool to leverage in helping do that. So we have an event soon where we're using AI to help recommend an ice cream flavor for you at a happy
Okay.
hour. So something as low and easy and as fun as
Right.
that, we sort of build it custom, and then you sort of chat with it, and then it recommends you your flavor. But also it can go even to like which breakout you should attend or things like that based on information you give it. We've also used it to help assist in networking. So
Mm-hmm.
helping find commonalities between people, helping sort of like bridge the gap between attendees. And then I think the other thing that it does is, in general, but it's really great at events, it's lowering the barrier for a lot of people to be creative, which is great. And so at one event that we did for Google for Gemini, we did a photo booth, which I know you're like, no, but we did a photo booth. But what was really interesting was you generated the image that was your backdrop, and you did it through
Mm-hmm.
Gemini. And so you like described like a place and the style of it and etc. And then it generated this like really
Right.
amazing textural background, and then you took a photo, like almost like a portrait in front of it. So it's just like really interesting in how it allows attendees to like be creative. I can also imagine like it helping creating amazing custom swag and things like
Yeah.
that. There's a lot of magic in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the customization I think is really where it's going to make a difference, because we're trying so hard to get people to our events, get stand out, and people want to feel like, oh, you really wanted me to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not that this is like we it's the funny thing of like, we want the things that are mass produced, but we want to pretend that they're mass produced just for us, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of brand
Exactly.
experiences. That's events, right? We want to feel like, oh, like they wanted me to be here, and it's like, yes, of course, right?
100%.
You
Exactly.
specifically,
Hand
right?
delivered your invitation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that I like hate photo booths, and I get excited when I see a new kind. It's just
Yeah.
like you can't see, like, no one can see it, but like my bulletin board is like filled with photos of the same photo, right? The
Yeah.
same funny glasses and the
Oh,
same
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
I know what you mean.
mustache and
Yes, yes,
the hat,
yes.
right? And it's like, and again, like I often have to remind myself, and I've had to remind colleagues of, and kind of circling back to where we started, of like, just because we see it a lot doesn't mean our attendees see it a lot, right?
Right.
Like I remember bringing out a 3D, a 360 camera to an
Mm,
event. Oh my
fun.
god, like you would have thought that we like were changing the world, right? And they just, and it's just surprising people, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
what are you doing that's different? What are you doing that's different for you? And and finding the right balance of like keeping the things people love, because I
Hmm.
worked at a company that used to do an event every year, and every year it was capped off with karaoke.
Mm.
Every year. And people got so excited, and we'd be like, okay, but like maybe we can do something different this year. And no, the pitchforks come out, and it's like, okay, so maybe we don't like change that part of it. Maybe we change a little bit out of it. And then one year we did the like karaoke with the band.
Okay.
Everybody lost their mind, right? So
Yeah.
like kind of taking the same experience that's familiar that they like, and then elevating it one thing better, right? And that's the balance of like not just doing it because you did it last year, but also not throwing it out completely because you did it
Totally.
last year. Like, how do you reimagine it so that it still feels fresh but
Hmm.
familiar, especially if it is an aspect that people really like, right? Like, if it's the puppies, like, are they dressed, are they in outfits this year, right? Like, whatever the difference.
My God, that's so
The poor
funny.
puppies, we're picking on
Yeah,
them
we're
so much.
really
Like,
putting them
if
through
you
the
go on
ringer now.
LinkedIn and type in puppies, like
It's
it's
it's too much.
it's craziness.
Okay, we
But
need to retire the puppies. But that, yeah, I love that insight because it's true. Like over time, when you're doing events year over year, there's iconic
Yeah.
moments or parts that people actually would miss if you took them away.
Yeah.
Like you said, the karaoke. Another example I think of that, which is like really rudimentary and simple, is like when Google does I/O every year, they have a ginormous I/O,
Right.
huge logo thing, big, huge. It's like a story tall. And it is the iconic place to go and take your photo.
Yeah.
But what they do is every single year they keep it. They're not going to take it away, but they're going to like reskin it, rebuild
Sure.
it, redo it and whatever, but it's almost becomes more about like, oh, I wonder how they're going to like reinvent it this year. You know what I mean? Versus, oh, it's the same thing again and again and again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love that. That's such an amazing insight.
Yeah, it's keeping that consistency and that brand and being really purposeful with it, right? Like not just doing it because of it's what you did last year. It's
Yeah.
not just doing it. You know, you mentioned like the brand activation or like brand impressions. Like, is that really what you're measuring, or are you just measuring that because it didn't go so well? And so you're like, well, a lot of people saw it, and it's like, okay, but was that what you were trying to do, right? Or is like, is that just how you're trying to salvage this, right? And so like keeping it fresh and interesting and like borrowing from other like that's why I think it's like so important to go to events outside of your industry
Yeah.
and to see what other people are doing, and like especially if you can get into other geographies, because I know like there's kind of a shift, like it kind of, my understanding is it kind of starts in Asia with like a new trend and then works its way through Europe, and then by the time it gets to us, like they're onto something else in Asia and Europe, right? Seeing what others are doing and using whether it's B2C or B2B and thinking, okay, well, how can we bring that to our event? How can we bring that excitement and that delight to our event? Because that's really what we're trying to do, right? It's trying to delight people along the way so that they remember us.
I love you're mentioning global, because I think when I first came into this industry, I was extremely like domestically narrow-minded.
Yeah.
But we've been expanding globally as an agency. And last year, I was on a gaming and esports account called Kadia Gaming, and it was a global tour. And it opened my eyes to so much, because we did Asia, we did like the Middle East, we did EMEA, we did LATAM. And first of all, the nuances, obviously what you're saying sort of regionally, like what is available from a technology standpoint, what is available, you know, what are sort of what are they used to in terms of like scenic and building an experience. But also more specifically, when you said like sort of looking at other industries or other types of events, I had never done gaming and esports work.
Yeah.
And going to those shows and seeing them also was so mind-blowing. It was so interesting, it was so different. And I think that there's actually like, there is so much potential there that I think is untapped. I think that they have like, the shows are really cool, super incredible. But I think that they're in a little bubble and they can be
100%.
truly disrupted. It's like, it's a world that 100% could be disrupted, and the audience is amazing. Like, talk about an audience that like loves world building, wants to be immersed, wants to get closer to brands, super fandom based, you know what I mean? Like they are really excited and they want to be excited. So like there's a great audience there too. So it was so interesting. And I take all the things I learned last year and I'm, you know, carrying it with me in all the events that I do, you know, now, whether or not it's a B2C event for, you know, some sort of consumer brand or even, you know, some tech brand that I'm working on now as well. It was just so interesting.
Yeah, it's esports is like a wild world of like, and I love that about our industry, and that's why my husband always teases me when we're traveling and I see like, welcome to wherever this like conference, and I have to Google who they are. So I'm like, who are these 1,200 people? Who are these 3,000 people? Like what are they doing? And you're like we all get into our own little bubbles, and you're like, oh my god, like this is wild. Like what this is all happening. There's 3,000 people at an esports arena. Like near my house. It's like, what? Like, what are they doing there, right?
It's incredible. Yeah, like when we were driving around because they were holding like the conference at one place and they were holding like the stadium tournaments in another place, the lines were incredible. Like the scale, just massive. The booths also massive. The scale of the booths were just mind-blowing to me. as well. And so I was just like, this is such an amazing, interesting, the way they use technology is totally different and everything. So I think I totally agree with you when you say like you have to go to events, you have to go to events outside your industry, but then also not just like borrowing even from events and experiences, like borrow from hospitality, like
Yeah.
go to a hotel and experience their lobby and their restaurant and what how they do things there, because we also are in the people service business
Yeah.
where it's still hospitality to a certain extent. Go to a museum, go to an art show, go to those types of things. We so strongly encourage that, particularly just because if the brands are coming to you to sort of put forth things that are new, compelling, interesting, of the time, even of the zeitgeist, but also just fresh,
Yeah.
and the only way you're going to do that is if you go touch grass, and get
Yes.
out there and go see things.
Yes, you got to do that. This is the perfect place to end. Well, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find out more about the work you're doing and find you online?
Sure, you can visit Moss at moremoss.com and also our Instagram, moremoss.
Amazing. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.